What's up, everyone? I have the pleasure to promote Pick from the Garden, a clothing startup for my good friend Justin Reed and his incredible team in California. Something both Justin and I are passionate about is growth. Whether it be within yourself or within the community, growth is an integral part of your life. Somewhere I need to grow is my sense of style. Pick from the Garden has you covered from head to toe, from hats to sweats to socks and much more. With fall being right around the corner, I got this embroidered hoodie that comes in a ton of different colors and is very soft and comfortable. Go check out Pick from the Garden on Instagram and at their website. Remember, keep on growing. Welcome to another edition of Quarantine Catch-Up. I'm your host, Tom Arinaldi, and as always, I'm joined by my talented co-host, Chris Famulero. This week's guest is strong, sweet, and damn good in media. Please welcome to the show, Jill Yarznbowicz. Jill, how are you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Thank you guys for having me.
Thank you so much for coming on. We're very excited to have you on.
It's truly a pleasure to have you here. And as we start every show, I want to know, how have you been feeling during this quarantine?
I've been feeling a lot.
Yeah, that's okay.
Haven't we all?
Every day.
It's definitely been a tough time, but everybody's healthy within the family. Everybody's feeling okay, at least.
Yeah. Thankfully, we've been really lucky.
That's great to hear. And to continue on to that, we've been in quarantine for 5 months. What have you been watching? What have you been listening to? I want to hear it all.
Well, I've been watching a lot of sitcoms, staying away from anything that's too, sad. Revisiting a lot of like old favorites. Like they put Community on there. Loved that. Like my boyfriend and I were quarantining together for a while. He was staying with us, and we watched like the IT Crowd like 4 times probably.
I heard that's really good. I never got into it, but I've heard great things.
Funny. It's really funny, but they don't have that many episodes, so you just keep rewatching.
Hey, that's fine.
Yeah. I mean, there's like some really good favorites, like What We Do in the Shadows, also like same kind of vibe as the IT Crowd, very out there, very funny.
The show or the movie or both?
I'm watching the show. I've
Okay.
seen the movie. I think the movie's also hysterical.
Yeah.
But the show is what's been coming out, what's been fresh.
Does it live up to the movie? Because I love the movie personally. I didn't get to see the show yet. Do you think it lives up to it, or?
Well, didn't the show come out first?
The movie came out first. It came out like, I don't remember what year it came out.
I want to say 2013, 2014, or somewhere around there.
Yeah. I was concerned when they announced it was going to be a show, just because, they're making what was a movie into a show. Is it really going to recapture it? But I think it did a really good job. It's really funny. That it's still Taika Waititi. It's really, really good.
Yeah, Chris, I highly recommend both the movie and, off her recommendation, the show. What else have you been watching?
Like I said, it's mainly been comedies. Like I've rewatched New Girl.
Great.
I've been rewatching Gilmore Girls now. My younger sister has decided to watch it with me, and
Nice.
She's 6, so I don't know why she likes Gilmore Girls so much.
That's
I told
great.
my mom that
It's
she
the
started
fast talking.
Yeah, well, she told me that she doesn't understand any of it because they talk too fast.
That's
My
great.
mom asked me what they were talking about in the show, and I was like, the main character is applying for a loan because they have termites, and that's the plot. That's what it's really captured by.
Something so simple gets you so far.
Well, I mean, Jill, I feel like you're one of the better people to watch that show with because you did your whole senior seminar paper on Amy Sherman Palladino.
I know. I got tongue twisted over her name standing in front of the classroom for so long.
I mean, it was a damn good presentation, and you really seemed like you knew what you were talking about. So.
Thank you. I completely don't remember any of it. All I remember is not being able to pronounce her name, like after like the 10th time, just something.
You mentioned New Girl, and a lot of people have been getting on that train recently. It's kind of like a cult classic, kind of like Community, where it's getting its legs through being on streaming, and a lot of people say it's one of the funniest shows on TV. Have you enjoyed the show, New Girl?
Yeah, I really liked it. I watched it initially when it was on air. It was interesting because I was in high school, so it was one of those shows that we would put on the DVR, and I would watch it with my dad. And so I would just keep watching it as it ran, and then I think like maybe a year or two after it ended, I like rewatched it, and then earlier this year I started watching it. Like I began the quarantine watching it, and then I recently started rewatching it again because I was like, you know what, I just need a laugh.
Yeah, of course. And there's a lot of good people on that show. My girlfriend's been watching that as well. She watches it with her brother, and it's like every time they finish the series, they just start right over again because it's funny, it's good. I really want to get into it. I've seen a couple episodes here and there, and I've really enjoyed it. On our little cheat sheet we have here, it says you've been watching a lot of podcasts. So what have you been watching? What have you been keeping up with that?
So I've been listening to a few podcasts. The one that sticks out is You Must Remember This.
Okay.
It's a podcast that kind of goes into, I think the way the host describes it as is like the untold or unknown stories about the first century of Hollywood. So it's really interesting.
Yeah, it sounds interesting.
It's kind of funny because like most of the movies and most of the people I haven't heard of.
Yeah.
But it's very, very interesting. She does some really cool deep dives into different periods. Like there was a whole like series where she got into like MGM and the stars that rose up during MGM and what the like, you know, the contracts were like, what that whole like studio system was like. The one I'm currently listening to is all about, it's called Dead Blondes. It's all about like different actresses who like for one reason or another had their careers or their lives cut short, and like part of their big, you know, persona was being a blonde.
That's
But she
interesting.
also like she had a whole one where she talked about like Hollywood during the Manson murders, you know, all these really interesting stories that I maybe kind of knew, but now I'm hearing more.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. That sounds extremely interesting. What's the name of the podcast again?
You Must Remember This.
All right. Well, I'm definitely going to remember that, and I'll go to watch it. And you kind of mentioned how studios and everything have built Hollywood, and you kind of see the difference between then and now, and how studios control things now is something that's really important. And that kind of goes into my next question is, we have these art house films that are a little bit more independent and kind of show off why cinema is cinema. And then you have these big franchises that everybody's come to love. That's really what gets people out into the movies. I know not right now because of the pandemic, but these are typically the things that everybody goes out to see. They make a lot of money. They're not necessarily the best, but a lot of people really enjoy them even more than these art house movies. So I wanted to get both of your thoughts on art house versus these big franchises. And Jill, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's absolutely a need for both of them. I know that oftentimes people will pick a side and kind of tear down the other one, but I think, you know, you really need to have these big sort of blockbuster films that pull people in and can just entertain people for a while. Like there's always been that need for people to just escape into a film. And then on the flip side, I think that it's really important to have these sort of art house films where you can experiment, where you could say something more and maybe tell a different story or tell a more universal story, tell something that's kind of interesting or different or even just strange. Like I think there's a really, really big need for both. And I also want to recommend, depending on where people are at, looking into the idea of drive-in theaters. I recently found a pop-up like drive-in theater.
That's awesome.
That's like, I don't know, 15 minutes away from me. And they play like such a large range of films. Like I saw 2001: A Space Odyssey the other day, and like tomorrow I'm going to go see Crazy Rich Asians. So like,
awesome.
You know, they have, I think that kind of demonstrates too that like you really need to have both of these films, that they both serve a purpose and they're both important.
I definitely understand all of that. And Chris, I want to hear some of your thoughts on art house versus these big franchises.
Yeah, I'm not really a huge, art house film kind of person. Like I'm not a huge film film connoisseur when it comes to like those not lower budget, but like the intention is not for mass audience. It's for, the dedication to the movie, like Jill was saying, telling a story, and expressing a certain emotion. really being experimentative through film. Like I think there are some studios that do that. They might not be considered art house studios, but like A24 or Blumhouse Productions, some of those smaller production companies, they put out some incredible films. One that I saw actually recently that I don't know if it would be considered an art house film, but it definitely wasn't a huge wide release, was The Lighthouse, and that movie was incredible. I mean, I had already heard incredible things. I was excited by the trailer. I just think that whole world is really interesting, like like the mariners at sea, or even trapped in a lighthouse. Like, it was just an incredible film, and A24 has been year after year after year has been putting out at least one good film. So, like Jill said, art house studios are necessary so that all forms of artistry in film can be a little bit more accessible. But I also tend to find myself a bit more on the, entertainment, not blockbuster side, but, the larger studio side, just because it makes it easier to see these films.
I understand where you're both coming from. And I really think it comes down to, as long as these movies are made well, I don't think it really matters from a film fan perspective of whether it's art house or these big budget things. A few that come to mind are like A Ghost Story. I really enjoyed everything from A24, like you were saying, Chris, is really good. Another one that came out somewhat recently was The Nice Guys. I mean, it has the feel of this big,
The Nice Guys,
big franchise type of thing, but no one went to see it because it was this original IP and everything. But it's in my top 10 movies. I think it's really funny, really well done, all that good stuff. But we do talk about all these big blockbusters, and there are a good handful of good ones that come out. And I would like to hear some of your favorite big time movies that came out in the recent years. Chris, we'll start with you.
Oh God. I was not ready for that. So like, you're asking like
big franchises, wherever that may be.
Well, honestly, I mean, as you guys know, and Jill, you're in the same boat. Like, I'm a huge MCU fan, big comic book guy. So I can't think of an MCU movie that has come out in the last 10 years that I didn't appreciate in some. Iron Man 2.
I understand that.
That's one that I didn't really wasn't really a huge fan of. But honestly, like, I can't really think of another. I don't know, maybe some of the animated films films outside of Disney Pixar's bubble, like DreamWorks, I think, has a couple of amazing ones. Like, I love the How to Train Your Dragon films. I love all three of them. They're some of my favorite animated movies. I think they're super well done, and I think they're some of the best movies that DreamWorks has come out with ever, like, just in general. But then you also have like the Despicable Me movies. I don't think those are DreamWorks. I forget what the production company are. Yeah, Illumination. Not a fan of that. Not a fan of that. I hate the Minions. The Despicable Me 1 was like, it was cute and it was fun, and like Steve Carell as Gru is like memed on now, but like there was no reason to make another one, and there was no reason to make another one after that, and there was
a spin-off,
definitely not a reason.
I think another spin-off.
So they're for kids. I'm sure Jill's little sister loves those movies.
I don't think she's seen them.
Well, then honestly, good for her. It's there's definitely hits and misses, but I think Netflix has kind of made that a little bit easier now with the addition, and Hulu as well, with the movies and stuff that they've added to find maybe not big picture stuff that you really would have liked. Like I found The Nice Guys on Netflix in college, and I couldn't stop talking about it the day after. Like, it's just so funny. Russell Crowe is so good in that movie, and Ryan Gosling is just peak performance, honestly. It's so well done. It's so well done.
I agree with everything you just said there. All the movies that you mentioned, I think, are really great. Jill, what are some of the big blockbuster movies that you've enjoyed?
Yeah, so the first thing I really think of when I think of like a blockbuster movie is part of that experience. And the thing that really kicked off like blockbusters, it has to be The Force Awakens. I know this is going back a little bit, like to our freshman year of college, but just the entire energy surrounding that movie, like the anticipation, the general hype, actually being excited to see this franchise come back. I mean, that is the absolute idea of a blockbuster in my mind. And then the subsequent movies, maybe they kind of lost that steam a little bit in terms of like hype and getting excited for it. People got a little disillusioned. But I think that is a franchise that really, each time it came out, there was so much excitement around it. There was so much anticipation and, of course, so much speculation and theories. But, that kind of adds to that. So whether, I can't say I super loved Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah.
But I was still excited going into it. I was still like, despite what I had heard, I was like, all right, let's see what this is. Let's see what's going on here. I'm still excited to see it. And I feel like some other blockbusters, like one of my favorite films is Jurassic Park.
Fantastic.
I have this whole thing
Same.
where like, I watch it. I want to watch it at the beginning of the summer. It has to be like the right day. I want it to be like, the right atmosphere to watch this movie. I don't know why. And I was so excited for Jurassic World, and then just,
I totally understand that. I went to see that, I believe, opening weekend, and it was just like, it's a lot of these movies are where you could just turn your brain off and just enjoy it for what it is. Especially being in media, you kind of have tendencies to nitpick certain things. So I also have to turn that part of my brain off just to look what's on screen and enjoy what's happening. That definitely happened with Force Awakens, not so much with Jurassic World. But I know a lot of us enjoyed the MCU, like you're saying, and they had this 2-movie event, really, with the Infinity Saga, Infinity War and then Endgame. And both of them blew out the water all these monetary records and everything like that. But they're also really good movies. How do you guys feel about those movies? Jill, we'll start with you.
So I really enjoyed them. I'd also like to ask you guys a question, because this is something that I get different reactions from. I feel like the more rewatchable of those movies is Endgame for me.
Okay.
I think they're both fantastic movies, but there's a part of me that is just like, I don't necessarily want to sit down and rewatch Infinity War. I think I would rather go to Endgame.
That's an interesting question.
I don't know why that is. And I've heard people say the exact opposite. I've had people agree with me. But I think that those movies are also like such a landmark, considering they wrapped up such a huge, like unfathomably huge franchise.
Yeah.
Like all the money behind that, all the people behind that, like that is incredible. Whether you're someone who is completely, superhero fatigued and or you don't like, superhero movies in general, like what they accomplished is still incredible.
Yeah, going off of your question, for rewatchability, I would say I think Infinity War for me would be more rewatchable, because I think Endgame of the two is the better movie, but I think Infinity War is better to rewatch because Endgame feels like just a whole bunch of like chess pieces moving together to get to that final battle, which that final battle is incredible and it's super worth the 3-hour plus watch for that movie. But Infinity War, there's like actual chapters to that movie as to like the lead up to the final. There's technically, I guess, 2 final battles that then coincide with one another in Infinity War. Like there's set points that lead up to everything, and you kind of almost get a little bit more out of the entire experience of Infinity War. I'm probably wrong, or that's my opinion, and a lot of people would disagree with me. But I feel like in Endgame, like it's more so like you're on this journey through building up to what you know is going to happen, like the re-fighting with Thanos. But like it's just a revisit to old timeline points in the MCU. Whereas Infinity War, you're almost like along for the ride with the characters and you don't know what's going to happen next entirely. Whereas in Endgame, it's almost like they laid out the plan. Now you kind of get to you're along with them for what you know is going to happen next. They just have to do it right. Like, I guess that's the point of that, it being a heist movie is, I guess you know what's coming. You just have to make sure they do it right. But obviously they're going to do it right because they have to get to Thanos at the end anyways. So.
Oh yeah, but you get that in any like superhero movie, kind of like to a certain extent. You're like, they're going to be okay.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of the reason why Infinity War for me doesn't stick as much as Endgame, is because it's all of that action kind of hinges upon the fact that, oh no, he got all the stones and they're all dead. And there's like that long drawn out sequence of everyone disappearing. And for me, that just like completely didn't hit.
Really?
Because, I mean, you have so many characters where I couldn't take myself out of my own head in the theater to be like, yeah, okay, I'm not going to feel sad for you because Tom Holland just disappeared and he's making this much money for the studio, and then Black Panther just disappeared and he's making even more money. Like, you're gonna like,
yeah, they're coming back.
I couldn't turn that off in my mind. Be like, oh, so sad.
Oh, wow.
Sometimes it is tough to turn off your brain to certain things like that and suspend your disbelief to a certain extent. For me, I think I enjoyed Infinity War more, but I think Endgame's more rewatchable for me because it does tie up all the loose ends. It is essentially a montage going through all these 10 years of movies that they've put out, and it gives you satisfaction in different ways. I think Infinity War, kind of to what Chris was saying, is a little bit more structured and has a little bit more to it. But Endgame is something where I could just shut my brain off, put it on in the background while I'm doing something else, and just rewatch it, enjoy it in a different way. So I hope that answers your question. But going back to recent blockbusters that I've enjoyed, I think one that's really divisive is The Last Jedi that came out for Star Wars. And that was a movie, for the first time, I've watched multiple times in theaters. I saw that 3 times and I really enjoyed it. I know some people it's usually one way or the other. How do you guys feel about the overall franchise for Star Wars that came out in the past, I believe, 5 years? Fam, we'll start with you.
See, I have a pretty favorable feeling on the sequel trilogy that came out. Like, I am a Star Wars fan, but I'm not like an uber Star Wars fan, who like, I don't read the books that even connect the movies even more there, or have the background story, and like, I'm not like one of those weird shippers that love specific like couples in the movie. So like, I just go and strictly want the entertainment value. Like, I care about lore in Star Wars, and like, I've watched other Star Wars based media, but as long as it doesn't completely throw off like the general base of lore knowledge, I'm fine with it. So like, I really liked Force Awakens. I thought it was well done. I thought it was the perfect re-entry Star Wars movie to get people excited for the universe again. The Last Jedi, I'm not super favorable on, but it has my utmost favorite scene of the trilogy, and it's the General Holdo scene where she drives the ship through the Empire's frigate or armada or whatever they're called, because that scene is just incredible. Like, Rian Johnson, right? That's his name, the director.
Yes.
Killed it with that scene. A+ on that part, buddy. But the rest of it, I don't really care. And then Rise of Skywalker, I think overall is a fun movie, and it's definitely fun. I feel like it ends really well. I think I really like the ending, and I like Rey's ending story. I'm glad that she's not with Kylo or any other individual. I'm glad she's on her own. You know what? I'm gonna say it. The end of Rise of Skywalker, I think it has a really, really strong final act. Like, its final third, really well done. The middle of that movie is like it's like water for me. I don't entirely remember most of it, and it kind of just flows in one ear and goes out the other. And the beginning of that movie, I can't even tell you what happens. But the final third, really good.
Solid.
Really well done.
And Jill, what are your thoughts on the franchise?
So I I think I touched on it earlier. Like, I absolutely love The Force Awakens. I don't know if it was also a little bit that it was kind of like a tougher time for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I was able to just say, like, you know what, this thing is really exciting and really fun, and I'm just going to lean into it. But I absolutely loved it in the theater. Like, I saw that one a couple times in the theater, even with friends who were like, I don't really know what this is, but I'll see it for you.
Yeah.
That movie for me is just like, it was the right amount of like camp elements, fan service, and also just like a very well done Star Wars movie.
Mm-hmm.
The Last Jedi, you mentioned that people are either like they love it or they hate it. For some reason, like, I fall in the middle.
Hey, nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, there is some scenes where I was like, this is incredibly goofy. Like the scene where they have the Princess Leia fake out, General Leia fake
Mm-hmm.
out. I was like, all right, this is
Stupid is what it is. It's stupid.
She was Mary Poppins for a little bit. It's okay.
And then it
force
also
bubble.
it's like a gut punch too, because for a split second you're like, is this how they're gonna get? This is what they're gonna do?
Yeah.
And like Carrie Fisher had just died, and this is how you're gonna send her out?
Mm-hmm.
And then she comes back, and you're like, oh,
Okay.
all right, okay.
Yeah.
That was just, I don't know why you did that.
Yeah.
And I was never one who liked the whole Rey Kylo dynamic. I
Mhm.
never liked them together, but there was something kind of interesting in The Last Jedi that I was like, okay, the idea of them being linked together is kind of interesting. I don't hate it.
Mhm.
I did enjoy some of the things that kind of, Rian Johnson was really big on, like flipping things on the head, twisting your expectations.
Yeah.
I enjoyed a lot of that. I think that like the battle sequence, like the fight sequence in the throne room
Amazing.
is still really cool.
Yeah.
I think it's still really awesome. So I think I lean more favorably, especially like, and I joined a Star Wars like meme page. There are so many people on there that like hate the movie with like everything in their being.
Yeah.
I'm like, man, there are things that I don't like about it, but I can rewatch it.
It's serviceable.
Yeah. I know a lot of people like also had an issue with the porgs.
Really?
Yeah, a lot of people found them like cheesy.
Okay.
And you know what? I loved them. I loved them so much. I received 3 of them that year as gifts.
Perfect. They're amazing. They were adorable.
Yeah, and then, I mean, The Rise of Skywalker, I didn't hear great things going into it, but I thought, you know what? I'm going to give it a fair shot. And I think that the franchise really needed a cohesive voice.
Mm-hmm.
I think they kind of put themselves at an extreme disadvantage by saying, we're just going to make them. There's going to be different voices behind them, and they're going to be, they didn't set up a cohesive story.
Yeah,
And
I totally understand that.
I think there was also like some behind the scenes issues with directors coming and going. They wanted to undo some things that they did. Like they wanted to make up for The Last Jedi kind of, which is understandable, but I feel like it's a very weak movie.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of, I mentioned The Force Awakens has that nice balance of like camp and fan service and also, just being a good movie. I feel like Rise of Skywalker just too much fan service in a way that is just like, here, do you want it?
Yeah.
You can have it.
JJ was like, I guess, but he's supposedly has his own cut of the movie where it is not all fan service and all that stuff. So we'll see if that one comes out.
No,
Can we talk about that for a second, because that's something that's really coming out into popularity now. That's really annoying me.
Director's cuts.
Director's cuts, which I know they're a thing. Whatever, they've been a thing for a while. But Tommy, I know you're more of a DC guy, I think, but goddamn, get your people in check. with this stupid ass Snyder's cut of Justice League. It's not going to do anything. It's not going to save that heaping pile of trash that is that movie. It's not going to save those trash characters. Just get Wonder Woman out of there and save her from that mess, okay?
The movie wasn't even done being shot when he left.
Yeah.
It's a waste of energy to talk about it like it's this godsend of a movie. If I have to go on Instagram, discover one more time and see Snyder Cut coming out in 2021, it's going to be the best movie ever, I'm just like, dude, he was gone before the movie was even in post-production. What do you mean?
Yeah.
Like,
did they have to do reshoots for this Snyder Cut? Like, what?
Yeah.
Man.
Just accept the movie is bad and move on. Like, you have other things to look forward to. Like, it sucks that the pandemic hit when it did because so many good-looking movies got screwed. Black Widow got screwed. Wonder Woman 1984 got screwed. Like, there's a bunch of movies that were supposed to come out, and you guys are just hyper-focused on this stupid movie that isn't even real. Like, it's not a real thing.
Sometimes movies can just disappoint you, and
right? Like, why can't people nowadays just be okay with the fact that a movie you were excited for came out and it wasn't good? Like, you don't have to then go on the internet and destroy everyone that worked on it, or people who actually end up liking the movie. Like, you can't just, I don't like this movie, but I was excited for it, so I'm gonna hate everyone who actually likes it. Like, just move on, dude. Watch another movie that you like. Like, God, calm down.
Well, that kind of goes into, like, the fans really own these properties, whether the studios like it or not, because the studios want to feed into the audience and give a little bit of fan service and all these other things. But when they hear it's bad, then it's course correcting. And there's all these different things that the audience really holds on to. And we see that with The Rise of Skywalker. We see that with a bunch of other movies. And even though Star Wars and Disney had Kathleen Kennedy to kind of keep one focus, and DC had Jeff Johns to keep one focus and all this other stuff, they're putting too much into the studio because they want to please all the fans, which is never going to happen. You might as well just make a good movie like a Wonder Woman or a Man of Steel or Force Awakens or any of these movies where they had a decently singular focus and they stuck to it. They were true to themselves. And hey, I mean, this is where the franchises are going right now. DC was trying to catch up with Marvel. Star Wars was trying to rebrand itself for a younger audience. That really started back with episode 6. They kind of carried that through with the prequels, which a lot of people are iffy about. And they tried to, again, course correct to give back to the older fans while also trying to introduce new fans, which is a tough task.
I think the way that Star Wars... Oh, sorry, Jill, go ahead.
Oh, these studios shouldn't be making films with the idea of fans and the audience in mind to the extent that they are. Like, when you talk about course correcting, it's because they've read a lot of really bad reviews online, and for a considerable part of that, the people who are loudest online can also be a minority.
Yeah.
It's not the majority of people. I'm sure a lot of people walked out of, like, The Last Jedi and were like, no, it's fine.
And that's fine.
Because there's so much discourse online, you know, they should just focus on making a good movie first.
Retweet.
And to build off of that, it's typically the people that respond to something, whether it's a review on Amazon or a review of a movie, it's the people that are the angriest or are the happiest. It's not necessarily the middle ground. So it's like you kind of have to take everything with a grain of salt, because it's not the overall majority, like you're saying, of the people that actually feel a certain way about a movie. But I enjoyed The Force Awakens to a certain extent. I thought it had really nice scenes, especially the scene in the woods towards the end, and you have the red and blue on both sides, or it was red and blue with the two lightsabers, the fight with Rey and Finn and Kylo. I really enjoy Kylo. Kylo's one of my favorite characters in the entire series. Last Jedi had some scenes, like the Canto Bight scene, which was not good. But I thought the throne room scene, I thought the ending with Luke, I thought was fitting for him. I know some people don't feel that way, but I do. The Haldo scene was amazing and everything like that. And the way I felt about Rise of Skywalker is the way I felt about Suicide Squad. They were both god-awful, but I enjoyed them for what they were. I had fun during it. I had more fun during Suicide Squad than I had Batman vs Superman, and I had more fun with Rise of Skywalker than I did most of the prequels and some of the other movies. So it's
You had fun in Suicide Squad?
I enjoyed it for what it was. I liked Will Smith and Margot Robbie as everyone else did. I thought Jai Courtney as Captain Boomerang did a decent job for his role. Joker, I thought
I
was
feel like all those characters, regardless of how good the performances were, like the writing was trash.
Writing was really bad, and
like the
they were
dialogue
also a
was
victim of the studio.
cringy.
Yeah,
The dialogue was the worst part of that movie. Anything that comes out of anyone's mouth, you're like, what normal human being would say something like
Joker
that?
saying "hunka hunka" is not good.
Oh yeah, well Jared Leto is just. Ugh.
Well, that movie was written in 6 months because of whatever schedule that they had, and then they had the people that made the Bohemian Rhapsody trailer that everybody loved. They made them recut the film in that way, and that's why it looks like a music video. So that's what happens, and now everybody wants a David Ayer cut. So it's all a vicious cycle. It's all a vicious cycle.
Yeah.
So, Jill, a couple of movies that we have talked about already, like Wonder Woman and Star Wars, and we brought up the MCU, which includes Black Widow, all have prominent female leads. And like I had said earlier, this summer before the pandemic had hit, we were supposed to have, Black Widow was supposed to come out, Wonder Woman 1984 was supposed to come out, both prominently female-led films. How do you feel about this greater representation in female leads in blockbusters now in film?
Oh, I love it. I'm so glad for it. I think it's like a long time coming. I think it should have happened a lot sooner. When you look back at the history of like these blockbuster films, like particularly talking about like, your Star Wars, your superhero films, you would think it would have happened a little sooner.
Yeah.
The one that sticks out for me, like in like the biggest, is the Black Widow movie. I'm super happy that it's happening, but 2012 Jill would probably have been so much more excited, and
Yeah.
I can't help but think that there's probably a lot of people in that boat where the superhero fatigue is real. It's out there. It'll be interesting to see how after this pandemic, it'll be interesting to see how movies perform in general. But it'll be interesting to see how superhero movies perform after, Infinity War and after Endgame. It might kind of lose steam a little bit. And I think it's a really big shame that they decided to wait until after that to release Black Widow.
Mm-hmm.
Like, when she was introduced, when she got big, I think that would have been the perfect time. You would have had so many people were desperate and eager to see her have her own film, and now it's like, I don't know, I feel a little bit robbed.
Especially
I wish she would have come a little early.
Especially for the fact that her character died in the last film.
Yeah.
It's weird. It's really weird timing. I agree. I don't know why, not even just in the MCU, but in films as a whole. Like, why the hell has it taken until 2020 for prominent? Wonder Woman came out in 2017 or 18, whenever that film came out. But like, why is it taking until the late 2010s or early 2020 to come out with these prominent, blockbuster female lead films? I mean, Captain Marvel is another good one, but look at how much flack Captain Marvel received.
Yeah.
Like, especially with Brie Larson as your lead, like, she's a prominent female actress who is incredibly talented. Female actress is redundant. Female actor. She's a prominent female actor, and a damn good one at that. And there's so many in the world of Hollywood today. I mean, and it's not even just, like we're talking about Scarlett Johansson and Brie Larson, but there's of all color ranges, of all ethnicities and backgrounds. Like, Lupita Nyong'o is another incredible actor. Viola Davis is an incredible actor. Like, how is it taken until now for Hollywood to be like, all right, now they can start leading their movies? Like, come on, man. Yeah. And it's
there was a big belief that these films wouldn't do well with a female lead. They thought that people wouldn't go out to see them. And I think it was really a case. I mean, I say I think, but I'm not by far the first person to say this. No studio wanted to be the first one to try and flop. And honestly, that I get a little worried about Black Widow too, because I feel like because they are releasing it after all of the superhero hype has kind of gone away, now that the fatigue has kind of set in, now that Black Widow is technically dead, that people aren't going to go out to see it. And the thing that they're going to point to is, well, it's because it was about a female superhero, not because of all those other reasons. And that happens. You have older superhero films. I mean, like, they weren't good. Like
Catwoman, Elektra, like that early 2000s stint where nothing was happening.
Instead of saying, oh, we didn't make a good movie, a lot of studios were probably like, well, people didn't want to see a female superhero lead.
Yeah.
And that's a shame. It took until really, correct me if I'm wrong, but it took until Wonder Woman did well on her own for them to say, oh, okay, we can do this now. We'll release Captain Marvel. We'll do a Harley Quinn, like, standalone. We'll do a Black Widow. When, you could have done it a lot earlier.
Yeah, for sure. Go ahead.
Sorry, just in the same conversation here, like, something that has to be kind of involved in this conversation, especially with how Disney Plus now is handling the release of these movies. I'm talking specifically about Black Widow and Mulan, both female-led films, both under the Disney umbrella. One is by Marvel, one is specifically by Disney. They're both going to Disney Plus, but you have to pay $30 to see them, to have access to them. And I think, one, you already pay for the streaming service. Rude that you are then making me pay more money, which I get it. It's a movie that should have come out on theaters that you would have paid extra for. Half of that money you're paying for a theater experience, right? Big screen, surround sound, environment. The other half is to pay to see that movie. I get it. I'm fine with paying extra for a movie I'm already paying for a streaming service. But why $30? It's not like you're paying for a DVD to physically own it.
Yeah.
And it's you're technically at most renting it.
Yeah. I mean, to a certain extent. I think the logic behind it is if you have multiple people watching, it's taking the place of multiple tickets. But I completely agree. $30 is outrageous for something like this.
You're basically putting a paywall in front of these movies that really, really, really don't need one to have viewership.
Yeah.
Like, you're just basically saying, all right, they didn't get released, so people who really wanted to see it are going to pay the $30. Well, like, maybe people can't afford to pay another $30 on top of their streaming membership. Like,
especially with everything going on right now.
What the hell is wrong with you? In a pandemic, you're gonna
the first ones to do it though, because Amazon even was like, I think the first one to roll out like Emma 2020. That one I think was like $20, $25 to rent.
Yeah, but then even on
release,
even like through Amazon Prime Video, right? Like, Tommy, you and I rented or bought either one of the Avengers movies and A Quiet Place. To buy a movie on Amazon Video
like
that isn't on Amazon Prime is in the realm of $12 to $4, depending on when the movie came out.
Yeah.
Like, I get these are brand new movies, but you're really hindering. You're going to hurt yourself. You're going to hurt the people who worked on the movie, and you're going to hurt the people who wanted to see the movie, because $30 is outrageous for a movie that you're viewing in your own home on a streaming service that you already pay monthly for.
And it's going to be on that streaming service later on, I'm sure. It's
going
to stay there. Yeah. So.
Oh yeah, they did that with Onward, right? Yeah. Where you could buy it for $20, or you could just wait a month and a half. Like, my family, we have Disney Plus, so we just ended up waiting a month and a half.
Same.
And watched it.
Yeah.
I know that these companies know that they're going to be losing money because of this, and that's why they're, hiking up the prices. But, I feel like that puts them at much more of a disadvantage. If they put it down even to $10, I feel like a lot more people would purchase that. Even 15 people.
I would pay $10 to see both of those movies. Like, I'm sure as hell not paying $30 on top of my streaming service.
Yeah.
No, it's just too much.
I'll wait.
You're going to lose money. I understand you thought you were going to make tons and tons of money off of this, but I mean, you're just setting yourself up for losing.
If they were to hold these movies until theaters were opened and people were willingly going and it's almost back to a normal flow. I would understand if these movies did get big numbers, because I understand that some people might have the fatigue, but because we haven't had this movie experience with these big budget, really well-known IPs, I feel like more people would be able to go out. But because of everything going on, it's just such a weird situation of, I mean, we hope to see Mulan and Black Widow get the money that they deserve, because I know, one, the representation, two, the amount of people that worked on it and that aren't these high executive people within Disney, they all deserve to get paid the amount that they would have gotten with a theatrical release. But it is genuinely a weird concept to have to pay $30 for a streaming service that you're already paying for to watch a movie. It's definitely odd. But I think to go further into that, we've talked a lot about the movies we've watched, whether it be art house or these big franchises. I want to get to know more about you and everything of that nature. I know you've directed for both TV through Pirate TV and some other things, as well as theater, I believe in high school, and I'm not sure after, but you've done that. I wanted to know your experience of what's it like directing for both, and how do you compare the two?
So it's very interesting because I've noticed there's there's a couple big areas of like what you did in high school that'll lead you down the track to TV. And a lot of people seem to be in the same boat where they were big theater kids in high school. And then they just kind of translated that over into media, where for me personally, I knew I had a moment where I was like, you know what? Maybe it might be hard.
Yeah.
It might be really hard to do theater. So I should just try to see what would be a little bit more practical. So directing for the theater is a lot more exact. It's a little bit more precise. You'll have actual like blocking where it's like you're going to cross here, you're going to pick up this, you're going to look over there, you're going to do this. And you still have that to an extent in TV. For example, our TV2 shows, where we had to actually write out a script. Some people did talk shows, but some people, like myself and Ivana, we did a scripted show where, we had, okay, now it's time for you to spill this, and you cross over there and you go over there. But the added element of that is you're also in the control room calling the shots.
Yeah.
Once you're done directing all that blocking in theater, you just got to sit back and maybe
hope it goes. Yeah.
Yeah. This one, it's much more hands-on. It's much more like exhilarating to an extent, because you are in the moment. You have to make sure that not only are they doing the right thing, but you also have to take the right shot at the right moment.
Yeah.
That's that added element that's kind of really exciting. Every time I've directed for TV, it's like, adrenaline going. You're kind of like a little, not crazed, but you're a little on edge.
Yeah, I totally understand that.
I've heard that before.
Yeah, and I mean, I've only had experience directing TV, so I understand that it is a little bit crazy. I've had to essentially find my Zen spot to do a hall talk or a TV one show or whatever it may be. But I'm glad that you did enjoy the theater experience and directing everything through there. I want to go also into your experience as a transfer student. You said you did a little bit of time being a theater student and everything of that nature. What was your transition like, and what was it like to finally get into Seton Hall and be like, okay, this is where I know I could be?
Yeah. I mean, I went to Brookdale Community College, which was a really fantastic school to go to, honestly. I mentioned I had started off doing theater and wanted to make a transition into something similar enough, and I ended up switching over to communications, which I then, interestingly enough, they said that the communications degree to transfer, you have to choose either journalism or media studies. And because I wasn't necessarily sure if I wanted to do journalism or anything else in communications, I went with media studies.
Okay.
And that I found myself taking journalism courses, taking communication courses, and taking a television course. And I really, really enjoyed the television course. in that setting, I had to direct a 30-minute talk show.
Wow.
Which
awesome.
That was kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Each experience that I've had working in a school environment, I think has prepared me pretty well for the real world, because each time it's kind of been like, oh no, something's gonna go wrong, you have to fix it. Like the time that I spent at Brookdale before the show, I was so stressed out because our host was supposed to bring the 3 guests.
Okay.
And he was not showing up
Oh no.
or responding to any calls. And I was like, I'm going to have to run through this building and beg people to just pretend. They were talking about video games. And I'm like, I'm going to have to beg people to pretend they know what they're talking about. Thankfully, he ended up showing up and it all went smooth. But, it prepares you for that moment where you're like, okay, what can I do? How can I solve this? You have to think on your feet a little bit. But in terms of transferring, I ended up just on a whim, like seeing a table set up about Seton Hall and kind of getting really interested in it.
Yeah.
And seeing all the opportunities, seeing what they had, and just really knowing like, okay, this is the spot where I want to be. And when I transferred there, it was kind of, I wish Chris was still here because he kind of gets it as well, being a transfer student. But that the first couple months, you're kind of terrified.
Of course. Yeah. I mean, it's like being a freshman all over again.
Yeah, except you're a junior and this is like the year you're supposed to know what you're doing.
Yeah.
And suddenly you don't. And like looking back on it, I probably should have asked more questions. Like I remember being so scared in TV1 because we had to get a guest and I knew literally no one on campus, which looking back, I probably should have just talked to the professor about.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. You're scared to ask questions. Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, I have to fit in now, day one. But there's that little rockiness. And eventually I found everyone at Pirate TV. I found everyone in the communication school, and everything it went from really being like very difficult and tricky and hard to overnight kind of becoming like, oh, all right, this is good.
Yeah. I definitely understand that. I mean, my first 2 semesters I was in, or my first 2 years, my apologies, I was in business. So I was like, this is a whole new world and all that other stuff. And then my junior year, similar to you and Fam, sadly Fam had a power outage, which is why he's not in the call right now. But once I got into that TV1 family that we all come to know and love, I felt like I was in the right place at the right time. I felt like everything finally clicked for me. I felt like I was where I was supposed to be in the world. And that's a really nice feeling. I want to know when you kind of knew this is like, I know this is clicking. I know I'm in the right place. I know what I want to do.
Yeah, so I started getting more involved with Pirate TV. I started showing up. I honestly, I was working part-time at a store and I changed my work schedule so I could show up to more Pirate TV tapings.
Lovely.
That's like, I literally was like, oh, I have a conflict. I can't make it on these days anymore. I'll make it on, I don't know, this other day. Just to like show up and to try to talk to people. And eventually one day, the executive producer pulled me aside and he asked me if I wanted to become a producer. And that was the moment where I was really like, okay, it's working.
Yeah.
I am fitting in.
Yeah.
They do seem to like me. It was really just a moment of like, oh, they like me.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Are you asking me to be your friend? I'll be your friend.
That was Veronica's sentiment too, because that was a little bit later in our careers where we asked her to finally be a producer for Pirate TV. And she was like the same feeling of like, oh, you guys like actually like me. It's not like she thought she was in trouble and all this stuff. But it is nice to hear that you really felt at home at that moment. I remember being in the control room at that time and like seeing Anwar pull you away. I was like, is it happening? Like, I remember talking to Anwar about it and being like, please add Jill. I know she knows what she's doing. She's helping out anyway. Like, she deserves a spot. So knowing that it meant so much to you, it was good to see that behind the scenes.
Yeah, I mean, it really did, because like I said, I think it happens with any transfer student. You have this time where you're like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know anyone. I'm just so almost desperate to try to fit in here.
Yeah.
So it's just really great to have had such a clear indication.
Yeah.
And then, you know, all of us who are going to be the new producers, we all just kind of not formed a clique, because I don't think we were cliquey.
I don't think we were cliquey, but we did have our own group.
Yeah. But we just sort of, I remember very clearly this one time, I think it might have been before like Thanksgiving break or something.
Okay.
Where like the first time we all sort of like hung out as a group.
Yeah. And
we were just like standing outside and we were like, we should keep talking.
Yeah, like this is a thing now.
Keep talking. You want to go sit somewhere and do you want to go over? Okay, we'll go over there and keep talking. Yeah. We'll talk.
It was more than just like classmates, because everybody has like the classmate that they might talk to for notes or whatever it may be, but it was definitely more than that, thanks to TV1 and Pirate TV. And I wanted to know, who were the first people that really made you feel comfortable? Obviously, within Pirate TV, you had Anwar and that group. But was it within TV1? Was it within Pirate TV where you're like, all right, these are my group of friends. Like, I feel comfortable now?
I mean, it really was, the standout people were you, Ivana, and Chris.
Yeah.
Because I had a couple of classes with Chris. Ivana like approached me after the Pirate TV interest meeting and just started talking to me. And then you were always so receptive to people. So I think I really found it easiest. Not that any of my other friends were hard to talk to.
Yeah.
But you three were the first instance of me saying like, oh, okay, I can make friends with these people. I'm getting close to these people. Like it's not just, because another part of being a community college student is you are so used to going an entire semester not talking to a single person in the class.
Yeah.
Because no one cares. Everyone just shows up and leaves if they show up. I mean, that's a little bit much. People tended to show up. But it wasn't necessarily
it's
like
very different.
People. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was definitely like oh man, I'm so excited that I'm clicking with these people, that I'm making friends with these people, that we're able to like talk, and maybe I'll see this person after the end of the semester.
It's more than just like a one-time thing with friends. It is, I always say this, that we became a family within PTV, and within that group that we built. Speaking of that group that we built, Ivana, you mentioned, and she was on the show last time we aired. She had nothing but praise for you, and I'm sure you have nothing but praise for her. What was it like to, one, begin that relationship, and then two, kind of see how it developed over the years?
Oh God, I can't help but imagine like being like, no, I don't have praise for her. No, but Ivana, like I mentioned, she was like, I remember her coming up to me and just talking to me, and I was so excited. I was like so happy that she was talking to me, and we were both kind of expressing like a little bit of worry about TV1, because we were like, oh, this sounds kind of intense. I'm a little scared. What if my guest doesn't show up? So I was really glad to just kind of form that connection early on. And I think we grew really close because we kept becoming like professional partners in terms of like, we were both put on the same day to train as producers. We were put on the same day in the spring semester to like kind of take over that role. And then what really solidified it is in Studio TV 2, when we partnered up on our big, terrifying production. I was like so nervous beforehand. And when the professor told us that there were too many people and some people had to pair up, I was immediately like, would you want to pair up?
Yeah, it's just like immediate, like, please help.
I'm so scared.
Yeah.
And I was relieved that she was in the same boat as me, where she was a little bit nervous as well. And honestly, like, it was such a fantastic, like, working partnership, such a great person. She was such a great person just to support me.
Yeah.
Like, she always had this uncanny ability to know exactly when I was having a really stressful or really crappy day,
Yeah.
because I would just get a text from her out of the blue that was like, "You got this. I know you're stressed out, but you can handle it. You're a legend." And I was always like, "Man, how did you know that this is exactly what I needed?"
Yeah. I mean, that's what good friends are for, you know. They're your support system, and they know before you do sometimes that you're having a bad day or whatever it may be. They see that something's off, especially when you're as close as you two are. I could definitely say the same about me, Fam, and Rob. Kind of just knowing how each other work. I feel like our producer group, we really knew the ins and outs of each other, thankfully. And those producer days of being together for whether it was 1 year or 1.5, like we were always on the same day. I feel like a certain amount of us, me and Fam, were always the same day. You and Ivana were always the same day. And you really do get to know how someone works and how they like things done. And you do build this rapport that's just unbreakable. Honestly, it was you and Ivana and me and Fam, the two dynamic duos at the top, really doing everything together.
Yeah, I completely agree. And there's also something in the fact that television can be such a high intensity, high emotion, like, world,
Hmm.
that, you kind of see the best in someone, and you also see them at their most stressed and maybe
Yeah.
at their most frustrated and their most aggravated. There were definitely times where I was incredibly frustrated in that
Yeah.
studio. Um, Not in our TV2 show. I
Yeah.
think
I
that
thought
one
you guys went very
very smooth.
smoothly.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the thing that stands out is that the day that we were actually supposed to tape got canceled,
Yeah, I remember.
and it had to get pushed. It that was just, that was incredibly stressful.
Yeah.
But I think it also, it didn't hurt us any. If
Hmm.
any,
You
we
were
were
more
able to
prepared.
plan out a little bit better.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Um, and it was great to have Ivana as my partner during that, because I had someone else to text and be like, "Oh my God, what is going to happen? I don't know what's going on. I don't know where the professor is. We have people coming in. The school's closed. What?" So that was like, it was great to have someone else to kind of hold up some of the slack, to be in it with you, to know that you're not going crazy,
Yeah.
and just like to have that support.
Of course.
All right, so I'm back. My power went out. There was a roaring thunderstorm that happened, but I'm back now, back to continue the conversation. And Jill, we talked a little bit about how you're a transfer student and your time at Seton Hall. So what's really going on now? You and Tommy were talking about the job market, and I know it's really hard to find a job currently, but you do have one currently working at the Rutgers campus in New Brunswick. How is that going for you?
Yeah, so that has been a really, really great experience so far. Um, I say so far, but I'm sure it's going to continue being a great experience. So I am the production assistant for the ITV studio at Rutgers. So that is really giving me a lot of really great experience, kind of doing a little bit of everything. So, I mean, unfortunately, because of the way the year went, I have now spent more time working from home.
Wow, really?
And when, I started in January,
Hmm.
and then in March, everyone was sent home. Um, Thankfully, a lot of the work that I've been able to do has been remote. So that's fantastic. One of the big things that our studio has been able to offer is allowing people to come in and record speeches for commencements. We do a lot of live shots for places like CNN or BBC. So we'll have people who come in, and we just send that feed out, and it gets broadcasted there. And that is like really, really thrilling. It's fun. It's kind of fascinating to hook everything up and be able to do that. So it's a lot of really, really great experience. We also, before the pandemic hit, did a lot of like either in studio shoots, like there's a TV show that shoots in the studio. It goes on to NJTV. It's called Images Imágenes. And it's just kind of amplifying and discussing different stories about the Latino community. And that's kind of really cool because I am an assistant editor on that. So that was kind of fun to watch my name go by as assistant editor on the TV. Call my mom in and be like, look. So that's nice. And then we did a lot of like on location shoots too, just like a lot of people would kind of request that we would go and shoot something for them and edit it. And, you know, that was really, really great experience to have. So I'm so grateful for this job.
It's really nice to hear that you like it. How has your experience from Seton Hall, whether it be from the classes or from PTV, how's that really helped you feel professional within this new setting?
Well, one of the things that I kind of realized was that I was not giving myself quite enough credit. You know, I feel like I've always struggled with audio. Mm-hmm. And so I was kind of upfront with that. I was like, oh, I want to get better at being able to do audio. And then we had like a workshop kind of going over the basics of audio. And I realized, oh, I kind of know this already. Like I know how to do like the little loop. I know how to pin, like, you know, I was not giving myself enough credit for what I knew.
Yeah.
And I think by saying like, oh, I'm not that good at audio, I was also doing a big disservice to myself in communicating what I know to the people I was, you know, working with, because, you know, I can do that. Yeah. And Seton Hall really, really prepared me for that. You know, it let me know exactly, you know, I think I did end up watching your last episode. I know Ivana touched on the idea that it was kind of older equipment, mm-hmm. but I think that really kind of helps us too, because newer equipment is easier.
Yeah.
So if you're working with a microphone that it's really hard to get good audio from, you know how to work that board.
Yeah.
You know, you know how to do that. You know how to hold the mic. You know, like now I think I'm like a little overly sensitive with the equipment. Like I get so afraid of touching things.
Yeah.
But I do think that helps you, because if you've worked with something that's harder, once you go and use something that's meant to be easier, it's kind of a piece of cake.
Yeah.
Which is nice. And I think that really, really helps, as much as we would always joke that like, oh, this camera is from, I don't know, the 60s or whatever. Like, yeah. I don't think it was the camera. I think it was the lights. The lights were from
the lights were from the 60s, but yeah. The cameras were old as us. So
yeah, the lights were what's shown on Jesus when he was born.
Oh gosh, those things are so old, and we just smack them.
Well, no, but I mean, I do agree with you in the fact, because, you know, I work at SNY and we have basically state-of-the-art equipment. I mean, it was like a culture shock when I went in for my first day to Tracer stage manager in A2, because, like, you know, we had wireless lavaliers that were, you know, rechargeable batteries, and it was just like the handling of this equipment, it was so much easier. Like, I learned knowing the basics of, you know, miking people. And that was a major portion of my job when I got hired at SNY. It's not really that anymore. But when I got hired there, you know, a major portion of my job was miking up talent, ensuring that they had the right mic placement, and, you know, constantly making sure that their IFB was good enough distance away from the microphone itself, so that they weren't fighting for the same transmission and stuff like that, and coinciding with the A1 to make sure that stuff was being mixed properly and stuff like that. So I agree. I think Seton Hall and PTV, given the fact that the equipment was a bit older and a bit lower level, it kind of allowed us to then get better at troubleshooting and problem solving when it came to having to deal with that stuff on a lower level for Pirate News or for Hall Talk. But overall, I think now we're all pretty much set when it comes to working in a more professional environment.
Yeah, I mean, like Rutgers has this beautiful lighting board. And the first time I really worked with it, I was like, man, I'm used to taking the one wire and plugging it into the wall, and taking the other one and plugging that in, and then getting up on a ladder and then working with the light itself. And this one, it's like, you just gotta gently raise it or lower it. You press a little button, you raise the master, and like if you really need to do something, it was like you have like a special like pole that you can actually lift up and adjust without
Okay.
having to climb up and put your face right next to the light. And I was like, man, this is so nice. This is so easy.
Yeah.
Oh, you can get like much more exact lighting, and I was like, wow, I'm genuinely glad that I learned it the difficult, sometimes scary way of like having to manually do everything with the lights. Because now it just seems like, I don't know, I'm ready.
Well, that's really nice to hear. Oh yeah.
I'm you said that you're a production assistant and you're an assistant editor, but like what is the primary function of your PA role? Because I'm assuming, like you said, you've now been able to operate multiple things in studio, whether it's adjusting pre-show and stuff like that. So do you have a primary role, or are you meant to be like that utility position that is supposed to be able to go and help at any specific area?
It's really more of the latter, the utility position, because it really depends on what the day's shoot is going to be. So if I'm needed a little bit, like there were many times during like the peak of the quarantine, the stay-at-home order, where a lot of my role was kind of scheduling and maintaining like the, which shoot was scheduled for which day, which group is this, do we have all of the assets that we need, is everything in there? And then other days it could be editing, or I could be pulled in to do to run teleprompter, or I'm doing a live shot where I'm kind of setting everything up, getting the IFB hooked up, getting the talent ready, doing that sort of thing. It really depends on what the day's task is, honestly, which I think is really great experience, because I feel like it makes me a little bit more well-rounded than I was before, because I'm learning a little bit of everything.
Yeah, and I think that's something that we do get from Seton Hall, of being well-rounded, because we had to do literally everything, especially on our producer days and everything of that nature. Unfortunately, we're going to end the interview here. Jill, I want to thank you so much for an amazing interview. So you gave some really great answers. For Chris Familaro and for Jill Yarznbowicz, thank you for watching, and have a nice day.